There we go. Instagram seems to... So we're going to talk about... Welcome. I've tried this 3 times now, and for some reason, the software's been really freaking letting me down. But we are going to talk about a song called Vienna by Billy Joel. And it's a beautiful song. It's got a beautiful intro. We're not going to talk about that, but I felt like playing that. You know the song, right? Beautiful intro. Lots to take on in that intro, but I wanted to talk about the verse. And first and foremost, I wanted to check out just the very, very cool A minor chord that hits in it. So the verse is in B flat minor. The entire song's in B flat minor, really. It doesn't really modulate anywhere, which is unusual for Billy Joel, as far as I'm concerned. Or well, I guess you should say it starts out in G G minor. Sorry, my brain's a bit cooked right now. I woke up at 4:30 this morning and got some work done, and I'm feeling like I don't really know up from down right now. But we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this thing because I want to talk about these chords. They're very cool. So let me just play the verse to you to begin with, and see if you recognize the song. I think you know it. Slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile. But then if you're so smart, tell me, why are you still so afraid? Too bad, but it's the life you lead. That's not lyrics. Ahead of yourself, that you forgot what you need. That you can see when you're wrong. You know you can't always see when you're right. You're right. You got your passions, you got your pride. But don't you know that only fools are satisfied? Dream on, but don't imagine they'll all come true. When will you realize Vienna waits for you? That's not the riff, but it's more or less that. So basically we're in B flat minor, but check this out. Not all the chords fall into that scale, and that's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I mainly talk about on these Get Good at Songwriting live streams, because I think being able to use outside the scale chords especially is very much the key to making your chord progressions interesting and keeping your listeners' attention and making your songs good. Hence this series is called Git Good at Songwriting. So we start out in G minor, right? And it starts out quite diatonic. We get the 1 minor chord, we get the flat 3. So I'm gonna talk about this as if we're in B flat major. Otherwise these chords are gonna get really complicated names, and I don't feel like calculating them in my head. So we've got the 6 minor chord, we've got the 1 chord, we've got the 5 chord. I always put a 4 chord there for some reason. So we've got the 6 minor chord, 1 chord, 5 chord, and then we get the first outside the scale chord, this one right here. Very, I don't know, very natural in the flow of the song, but quite unexpected when you play the chord progression like this. So check this out one more time. Really gives the chord progression a huge sense of added momentum. This is an A flat chord, so what we have is a G minor, B flat major to F major, A flat major, which translates to, in Romantic numerals, 6 minor, 1, 5, flat 7, that borrowed chord from the parallel Mixolydian or Aeolian mode. It exists in a couple of modes. And it serves the purpose of, like in terms of the circle of fifths, this makes the chord progression darker. I don't know if you agree with that exactly. I feel like it makes the song a little bit brighter. It gives it a little more energy when it's used in this context right after the 5 chord, because you'll notice that F major, the chord that comes before this one, has a major third, because it's a major chord, which is an A natural. And then you get this A flat, so you get a ha. Another way to, like, a chord progression that would have been very similar would have been to go to F minor, right? But instead he goes to A flat major, the relative major to F minor. So, slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile. So good. Love this chord. Moving on. But then if you're so smart, tell me why are you? You're so smart. Tell me why are you still so afraid? A couple outside the scale chords there. First of all, we get the you're so smart. This is a 4 chord, E flat major. Tell me why are you still? 1 chord, B flat major. And then we get this 2-5 for the 6 minor chord, the secondary 2-5 really. A minor, D7 to G minor. Very important chord progression, the 2-5-1. But what's unusual about this 2-5-1 is that you'd normally expect this A minor chord to be inside the scale. You'd normally expect to hear a half diminished chord, a so-called half diminished chord, or a minor 7 flat 5 instead of a minor 7 chord. Because an A half diminished does fit within the scale of B flat major. And then the only outside the scale chord is this D7 right here with its F sharp, which does not occur naturally in the key of B flat major, to take us chromatically up to that G natural, G minor. I call this the yesterday 2-5 because as opposed to McCartney plays the natural 5 on that 7, and it fits the melody. Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though Billy Joel does this in a couple more songs. He does this in a song called Honesty as well, where he goes 7 minor 7, 3 7, or secondary 2, secondary 5 for the 6 minor chord. Very cool. I really like using this 7 minor 7 chord because it's, you could see it as a borrowed chord from Lydian at the same time. So it just lends the key a little bit of a brighter sound. See if you can notice that. So we're in, this is the dark one, another bright one. Just feels a little bit less gloomy and ominous. I'll play that one more time, the dark one and then the bright one. So can you tell the difference? It just sounds a tiny little bit brighter. I'll do it one more time just so you can pay very close attention to the difference between the A half diminished and the A minor 7. So that chord progression, that verse of the song Vienna by Billy Joel is 8 chords, and 3 of them are outside the scale. Darn near 50%, pretty wild. Slow down, you crazy child, you're so ambitious for a juvenile, but then if you're so smart, Tell me, why are you still so afraid? Very cool. Now, I want to talk about a couple cool chords in the chorus as well. When it goes, this is what's called a deceptive cadence. When the song moves into its chorus, usually the verse would end, it would move into the next verse after that one, which is this, resolving this A minor 7, D7, down to where we expect it to go, a G minor 7. As opposed to what it does in the chorus, where it does a 2 and a 5, and then up a half step to a major 7 chord. The mostest, typicalist kind of deceptive cadence. Take a dominant 7 chord, move it up a half step to a major 7 chord. Very cool. And you'll notice also wow, I just got pelted with YouTube comments over here. I had to chat. You'll notice also that an E flat major 7 is the same thing as a G minor chord. This is a G minor chord up here. These 3 notes. Then you just put an E flat in the bass. And you got an E flat minor 7 chord. Meaning G minor and E flat major are very close to being the same chord. Just one note apart. E flat major has the E flat that G does not. It's the flat 6 in the context of a G. But it always ends up sounding like an E flat with a G in the bass if you play it like this. E flat major 7 with a G in the bass. I have a very difficult time hearing this as a G minor flat 6. However that may be, very cool transition in the chorus to kind of use the same secondary 2-5 over here that normally goes over here and subvert our expectations the second time of going. You got your passions, you got your pride, but don't you know that only fools are satisfied? Dream on, but don't imagine they'll all come true. When will you realize? I got to that. Vienna waits for you. Need to practice this little riff in between here. Next couple interesting chords to talk about here. If we just go through the chorus, what's happening here theoretically is that we've got the flat 6 chord. We've got the 4 chord if we're thinking of this as the B flat major. We've got the 4 chord, E flat major. We got the 5 chord, F7, and we got the 1. It's like the mostest typicalist classical chord cadence of all time. Nothing unexpected here. Then we get this very cool scale diatonic walk down through the chords. 1, 5 with its 3rd in the bass, first inversion of an F7 chord, or F chord. Very common. Billy Joel does this a lot. Down to the 6 minor chord, down to the 1 with its 5 in the bass, second inversion 1 chord. So we're just going down the scale here. Very nice. This whole start of the chorus, it's dawning on me, is super classical. Got your passions, you've got your pride, but don't you know that only fools are satisfied? I mean, the melody doesn't sound classical at all, but if we isolate the harmony here, it's like just quintessential, one of the quintessential examples of a diatonic classical chord progression. 4, 5, 1, 5, 6, 1, 4. And And then we get something extremely jazzy, which is something I really appreciate about Billy Joel's music. He tends to mix the jazz with the classical a lot. So we get this super classical sounding first part of the chorus, and then we go back to these chords, which are not classical sounding at all. This is very much a jazz staple here to do a secondary 2/5 again for the 6th minor, which we talked about already. And again, we get this. The 2 chord is a minor 7 chord as opposed to a half diminished minor 7 flat 5. Very cool. Dream on, but don't imagine they'll all come true. Ooh. Here we get an outside of the scale chord. Very nice. Borrowed chord from parallel Lydian mode. A C7. Just lends the song a very typical Lydian sounding brightness here, as opposed to the diatonic chord, which will be versus. Now you'd expect this C7 chord to go straight down to an F7, and that for that to resolve to a B flat major. But we get one more chord in between there. So basically, to explain what I'm talking about in a little more detail here, you get the 6th chord. This is like a 2/5, secondary 2/5 for the 5 chord in the key, which takes us to the 1. And the bass motion is going down in 5ths here. If we were to start on a G up here, or a G up here actually, the bass is going do, 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 oh. can't do a low B flat. Same thing. Bass is moving down in 5ths. Very jazzy. Ooh, when will you realize Vienna waits for you? But that's not what happens. Ooh, ooh, when will you realize? That's so spicy, Billy. I'm discovering so much stuff about these songs as I talk about them on these lives. Just a sharp 11 on this G flat 7 chord here. Very typical for a tritone substitute, actually. Very cool. So to decipher the words I just threw at you, basically what happens is we have a secondary 2/5 for the 5 chord in the key of B flat, and instead of going straight to the 5 chord from there, from the 5 of the 5, the double dominant, as it's called in Germany sometimes, Doppeldominante, because it's the dominant for the 1. We go to the tritone substitute for this chord, meaning we do so this is a C7 chord, dominant 7th chord, and now we're about to move down a tritone. We're about to take the root note down a tritone and build a dominant 7 chord on that, and taking this root note down a tritone means landing on G flat. Very jazzy. And listen to the melody as it lands on this G flat 7 chord, because it hits the sharp 11 again, which is what I was talking about before. It's just check this out. I'm gonna stop on it for a second to let you appreciate it. When will you realize? Very sophisticated jazz sound here. And Billy Joel just slips this all right past you in a pop song that sounds as accessible as Ariana Grande. Crazy shit. I should say Taylor Swift. Ariana Grande actually does some pretty cool stuff sometimes. Ooh, when will you realize Vienna waits for you? And that's it for today's Get Good at Songwriting. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you learned something, and I will see you Tuesday next week for the next installment.